Like, I didn't have to
Mm-hmm.
think about like, well, you did that. Like, why? I would be mad too because you did that to me. And they're like, oh, I didn't even think about that. I'm like, yeah, why?
You're
Like,
like,
what are you
how didn't
talking
you
about?
not when that was what the problem was? Right. No,
Yeah, I'm
I
like, you're the
totally
problem.
understand.
Hey y'all, welcome to For the Redefined. My name is Patience Marie and I'm the host of For the Redefined podcast. I'm so happy that you're here. As you can see by the title, we have my cousin here, amazing guest Dorian Mitchell. We're just going to get into obedience and how that's shifted from when we were younger to now. And we just were so excited about the conversation, we didn't even introduce ourselves. So we're just going to come right in. You know, I like to get into it. We're just going to come right in on the episode. Like I said, I'm so happy you're here. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Any parts that resonated with you, feel free to comment below. I am always looking for your feedback. So as you're listening, if you ever come up with any topics, then you can definitely put those in the comments as well. Let's get into the episode. So we did say that we wanted to talk about obedience. And I feel like that was like a really good topic just in general, but like personalizing it to certain things that we've had to, because everybody has different issues with being obedient in certain things. Like some things are easier for other people to do, and I felt like for me, I was always thinking about like, okay, what is something that I really care about? Because it was just always so hard for me to be like, okay, if I'm going to school for something, like what do I want to go to school for? Like what do I want to, like, in your head when you're younger, like what do I want to do forever? Like what do I care about enough to be like, I want to go to school for this, to do it forever? And I just felt like I could never find that. And then I just ended up doing like general studies and like minoring in psychology, just like something random, because general studies was like you can basically like pick your classes if you do like the right if you have the right requirements or whatever. You can just like, okay, this class needs to be 400 level, but you can pick out of like 20 classes, so you just kind of get to figure out like whatever class you're interested in basically. They don't really tell you what you have to take. So I was just like, okay, that's the most lenient, so I guess I'll do that way. So then when I graduated, I was just like still trying to figure that out. And then when I started, like when the pandemic happened, that was when I first started having like the press to speak out. And like if I had something to say, like God was really pressing me to like record it and post it, mostly on Facebook, because I wasn't really like active on any of my social media. Like I was the person that posted like once a year and then like didn't really get on there that much. But when he was like, I'm like, I know it was God, because that's something that I would never care about doing. I was like super shy. I would never want to do that. And as I like started doing it, then he gave me the name For the Redefined, I think in like the middle of 2020. And I was like, absolutely not. Like, we're not doing this. I'm like, we're not doing this. I was even starting to do like the lives, the Facebook lives with my dad every week. And I liked that, but even that was like, he had to like drag me to do that. Like I was like, please don't make me do it this week. Like I hated it so much. It always was fine afterwards, like when we were doing it and then afterwards, but all before I was like cringing. Like I was like, this is the worst thing that I could do. And so then when I started the podcast, it was just those like slow steps that God was like, okay, if you're not going to do this, then like I'll prepare you this way, like if you want to go this way. And then when I finally like surrendered to even do the podcast, in my head I was like, okay, even though it was so wrong, I was like, okay, this is it. Like this is the last big thing that I have to like decide, or you know what I'm saying, like figure out what I want to do. And he was like, oh no, like this is just the beginning of all of it. And I just and I'm like, okay, now I'm like posting in Instagram reels and like being consistent with showing up, posting on stories, going live every once in a while. Then he was like, you should do TikTok too. So I'm like, okay, I'll do TikTok. And just really like following his lead with it. And some things are more comfortable, but a lot of times, like even with starting the podcast again with this season, it was like so hard to like get in the groove of it and be comfortable with hearing my own voice again and editing and everything. So that's like what I what I wanted to ask you about is like, have you had a process like that, or do you feel like you're in the middle of a process, or like what do you feel like you're like God is calling you to be obedient in this season?
So I do feel like I'm currently in the middle of that.
Okay.
Um, so like for so long, I just believed that like I was gonna make it big. I was gonna do music for the rest of my life. And so I was
Mhm.
like, well, I didn't really feel like I needed to go to like a university. I took some classes at a community college for like, guitar and production and stuff like that. But I never
Mhm.
really felt like I had to go and get like, a degree for that because I was like, oh, well, I have a great voice, I know how to write. Um, and I was like, I got asked to be in a group. And so I was like, well, this is
Yeah.
going to take me, right?
Yeah.
And so that was back in 2015 when we started making music. It was three of us. And then 2015, I would say toward the end, my current roommate was like, "Hey, I'm planning on moving to New York City." And he was like, if you want to come, like come. And I was like, well, that's where the music is. That's where I'm going. So did that, lived there for two
Mhm.
years. Then we, kind of moved here just for here being Atlanta, Georgia, for the sake of the same thing, right? We had connects here. We were like, why not?
Yeah.
Um, and then, you know, 2020 happened. You know, the pandemic
Mhm.
happened. And so um I continued doing music through that. I would do freestyles and I was just kind of like because the band was kind of at a standstill, he was working and I was at home collecting money. And
Mhm.
so basically yeah, the pandemic happened and like I said I kept doing that and then I kept doing the freestyles and then a label hit me and I was like, holy moly.
Mhm.
Like I was like, oh my goodness. So um I told that they basically offered me, a contract
Yeah.
and it was kind of like at the time it was like kind of like take your time, we'll be here. And so I took like a week and asked around, talked to my mom about it, talked to I think that was like really the only person I talked to about it.
Mhm.
And then God, but sometimes we're not as patient as we should be when it comes to talking to him. So I just took it.
Oh
And
my gosh. Say that again.
I ended up not I said I took like 5 days or so, talked to my mom, talked to God, and we're not as patient as we should be, when it
Right.
comes to talking to God and hearing Him out. And so I just went ahead and just was like, well, I mean, why would He present this, or why would this be presented if it wasn't Him? But that's we'll talk about that a little later in the conversation, get deeper into that. But yeah, and I ended up asking them to drop me. It was like more of a spiritual thing.
Mhm.
Um, it got, and I tell people just being very vague. Like it got dark. It got really dark, and I just called the label and I was like, that fork in the road. God shows you something, and you're like this. He's like, this is what you'll be surrounded with, and I was just kind of like, I'm good, and I took the other route, and anyhow it brought me to this church and started getting to know people, and one of the young ladies worked in a preschool, private preschool. And so I was like, I mean, I've always been good with kids, and I've always like when I lived in Aurora, Illinois, like I would worked at Marie Wilkinson, which is like a preschool daycare type thing. And I was
Mhm.
like, well, I was good with that. And I had a sister, or I have a sister. She's 16. I was 14 when she was born. So that type of thing. And anyhow, just always been really good with kids. And so I went and tried it out, and um, I really liked it. I didn't like the pay. Still don't like the pay, but I like the kids, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so there was a business plan that God dropped in my spirit, like when I was in New York, and it was for like this academy, bunch of different levels. Like first, it started out in my head as like a Montessori, but then it kind of expanded, as God would do with the things that He drops within you, and
Mhm.
so I feel like that will be down the line, but I feel like I'm just meant to help. I'm just meant to be like of service,
Mhm.
and so I'm still figuring that out. Like I said, I'm in that season of figuring it out. And so like I've been of service in many different facets of my life, but like I'm trying to figure out what he has for me versus what I think it is. So,
Yeah, so when you first like started teaching, did you feel like a sense of peace about that? Or do you feel like you were still like this isn't it? Or like how are you feeling with that?
um so I definitely love it. And it's one of the things, I would say one of the things, one of the I would say many things that I've been interested in, but it's like one of the things in my adult life that made me want to go to school for it,
Mm,
right? So like I'm currently in this class. It's for a certification, but I think I'm going little and seeing like,
mm,
okay, is this really what I'm gonna do? And it's free, I got a scholarship for it, so it's free. And you know, so I just I think I do love it, like my eyes just light up. Like I really do love kids, and um of course want them one day.
mhm,
I'm for the first time in my adult life, I'm letting God take the wheel and walking through the
mhm,
doors that he opens. When this happened, I was like, oh, it was easy, and I, got the interview, got the job. And then there was a new school that was opening up the street for me, and I was at work one day and I was like, I'm applying that as Christian to that, excuse me, it's Christian based.
mhm.
It's a private preschool as well, and it's new. I'm like, why not? You know what I'm saying? And it's
Right,
literally
right.
7 minutes away from my house or less, probably three
Mhm.
minute drive, right? And so I really do love it. And I feel like, you know, learning about God as well and planting that seed that I had to fall back on into other kids, that's like, it's such a beautiful thing, And
Yeah.
so I honestly do love it.
Yeah, that's so awesome though. I didn't know
Yeah.
you were doing the certificate. How is that going?
So last week was my first class, and I mean, I'm excited. I'm nervous because I haven't been like in school in a really long time. And
Mhm.
so that's the only thing. But overall, I'm excited simply because like I'm gonna learn. It's not just about being in the classroom. And people say preschool or pre-K, like what are they learning? But it's like if you think about it, and you take like if you take like the more tangible things that you're used to seeing, and like we're teaching them how to use the bathroom. We're teaching them how to have manners. We're teaching them how to eat.
Mhm.
We're teaching them how to, speak. We're teaching them about vowels. We're teaching them about consonants. Like it's really the foundation of what you have for the rest of your life. And adding
Yeah.
God into that, like I think that's so beautiful.
Yeah.
I think that's an amazing thing. Yeah, I don't know if I answered your question. I got like really passionate.
No, no,
I
that
got
was
real passionate.
perfect. No, that was
Yeah.
perfect. Do you feel like obedience has changed for you, like since you've gotten older, like the meaning of obedience and like the
Mhm.
discipline of it? Because I'm asking this because I feel like when I was younger and going through certain things, like so many people would tell me, they're like, you should be a teacher, like you would be such a good teacher. And I'm like, no,
Mhm.
like why would I ever want to do that? And I
That's
was
not
like
cool,
you,
right?
yeah, I'm like, ew, no.
Yeah.
I'm like, they don't make money. I'm like, I'm trying to make money. They don't make
Right.
money. Like, no. Um, but in looking back at my life, I'm like, I've been a
Mhm.
teacher the whole time. Like there's been so many
Mhm.
times where people were like, even though I wasn't trying to take the responsibility of that, there were so many times where people were looking at
Mhm.
me like, hey, how do you do this? I saw you did this. Can you walk me through it? Can you teach me through it? I'm like, oh sure, like yeah, or like having a
Mhm.
conversation like about their emotions or about their insecurities, and like being that person that people can go to, and like giving them both sides of something, like, hey, okay, you might have did this wrong, like this part was why they got upset, and like I get why you were upset, but giving people both sides of things. And it was always just something that was like easy to me. Like, I didn't have to
Mm-hmm.
think about, like, well, you did that. Like, why? I would be mad too because you did that to me. And they're like, oh, I didn't even think about that. I'm like, yeah,
And
why?
you're like,
Like, what are you
how didn't
talking
you
about?
not when that was what the problem was? Right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
I
like, you're the
totally understand.
problem. I'm like, what is going on? But
Right.
I think a lot of things like really turned around for me. Um, Honestly, like, even though not to like negate the tragedy of COVID and the pandemic, I felt like 2020 was a really transformative time for a lot of people, but just for me personally in a positive way. And just being able to like be with my family, um, and going to church sometimes, like where when it was like five people at church, like literally just like the bishop, my dad playing the drums, and like literally sometimes being two people in the crowd while they were on Zoom, like being able to do that and cultivate that relationship with God just by myself was like so
Mm,
pivotal. Like, I just felt like that was my year of like, I didn't, anything that somebody was trying to tell me I was, like, God was like, we're literally going to break it all the way down, and I'm going to build it with you this time. Like,
that's so good.
nobody's going to be able to like put something in your head and then you're all anxious about it, or you feel like that's what you're supposed to do with your life. He was like, everything is going to shut down and we're going to do this together. And like, cause at that point I'm like, I've tried everything. I thought it was with a man, that didn't work. I thought it was with school, that didn't work. Like, trying everything. I thought it was weed at one point, that didn't work. Like, so having everything break down and then being like, there's two options for that, of like, are you going to go darker? Are you going to make it everything even worse and just be depressed and sad? Or you're going to let me build you back up and show you what you're really supposed to be. Like, both ways are hard is what I learned. Like, I felt like,
Right.
oh, we're going
Right.
toward the light, it might be a little bit easier, but it's like, no, they're both hard. Both the
Right. No, for
decisions are
real.
hard. So it's like, which one are you trying to build your life off of? And so
Hmm.
yeah, so like, do you feel like obedience for you has like, I guess, does it mean something different for you instead of it just being like, oh, this is what you're supposed to do now? Or do you feel like it's like a way of life of being obedient?
I feel like what I'm doing now, you know how you just have everyone has the hindsight and you're like, man, if I did this 5, 6 years ago, you know,
Mm-hmm.
um, what I will say about that, what I will say about that is like I wouldn't be the woman I am today. I wouldn't
Mm,
be as strong, not saying that, having strength and all those things aren't in God's plan for me, but the way in which I needed to learn, I don't feel like I would have, if it weren't for my story. And so
right.
I feel like, you know, it's like when your parents are telling you to do something, and you're like, my mom would be like telling me something, and I'd be like, Mom, this, and that. And she would be like, I said that. You know, that's kind of like how we treat God. And so, like, I think I know that obedience now, like, it's even more freedom than, post obedience, if you will. It's even more freedom. Although it may seem like it has a lot of limitations and boundaries, for the most part, it has more of like a longevity, like within the freedom, than if I were to
Yeah.
take the wheel on my own. So I think I
Yeah.
really,
No, that
I
makes
love that.
sense. That's beautiful that you are able to see that, because I feel like just to do like a small little jump, I think that some people, that's kind of what keeps them from Christianity, is that they
Mm,
think it's so many rules and laws and that's all it is. But I'm like, when I really started spending time with God, I'm like, no, he's just a good father.
yeah.
Like, that's all it is. Like, he's just a good dad. It's like,
Hmm.
why? It's just the same thing as like, why would my dad, if I was 5 years old, why would he give me the keys to a car?
Right.
I'm going to kill myself.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to kill myself and hurt somebody else or kill somebody else. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, there are certain
Right.
ways, like, no, okay, you're going to watch me drive until you're 15. And then you can go through the class at high school. And then you're able to get through
Mm-hmm.
in the driver's seat, and then I can watch you. And then at some point when you pass
Mm-hmm.
the test, then you're able to drive by yourself. Like, it's like, okay, that when you look at it that way, it makes it, even though it's still hard, it makes it a lot easier to make the choice of discipline or obedience, even when it makes absolutely no sense. Because it can be like something where you really feel like you have no other choice sometimes. Like, even for myself, it's like, I could have chosen another job, or I could have went another way and never did the podcast, but I know, like, deep down, like, my spirit would have been like, this is not what we're supposed to be doing. You know what I'm saying? And like, understanding how my body reacts when I'm being disobedient to God. It's like, bro, I
Right.
can't relax. I'm like,
Right.
you know what I'm
Shoulders up
saying?
to
You're
you.
like, you're
Yeah.
like, I can't
Yeah.
relax. Like, this isn't what we're supposed to be
Right.
doing right now. And I honestly, like, it's
Right.
sad to say that I didn't just, not sad to say, but sometimes I'm like, dang, I wish I could sometimes I could just blindly obey instead of like having to be like pulled so long and then be like, okay, well, I'm just tired of feeling like crap because I know I'm not doing the right
Mm-hmm.
thing. And then that's what pushes me. You know what I mean? So
Right.
I think
Right.
like I'm getting better with that, but it's just like, especially as I'm getting older, I'm just like, man, this is going to be an ongoing battle that we have. Like,
Mm-hmm.
not, yeah, I guess a battle that we have to continue to fight, you know, because it's
Mm-hmm.
like, there's never going to be a point where both things aren't pulling at you, you know, like
Right.
the spirit and
Yeah.
the flesh. Like, there's never going to be a point where they just take a break. And
Right.
I was like,
You wake up
I'm
and you're
like,
like,
please,
oh,
Jesus, just give me like an hour.
I'm done.
I can't. I'm like, I can't do this anymore. And
Okay.
I was on the way, literally on the way here, I was driving, and I'm like, I've been at work all day. I literally like packed my bag really quick and picked up Joseph, went to go get food, and then we got on the road. And I was like, man, I'm like, the day we were like 30 minutes, and I'm like, the day just keeps on going, doesn't it? I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, when is it gonna
Mm-hmm.
stop? He was like,
Mm-hmm.
it'll stop in about 75 years. I'm like, 75 years? He's like, yeah, you'll be dead. I'm like, oh my God.
Jeez. Whoa. The jokes, the dark humor now that we have, like after COVID, hits different. It hits different, man. It really
I was like,
does. I'm like,
I guess that's true. I don't know, man. But I'm
man.
like, it just keeps going. Like, there's no, like, yes, there is peace and rest, but it's just like, you have to wake up tomorrow and make the right decision, or else, like, yeah, it doesn't matter if you're going to keep on making five good decisions. If you make five bad decisions, you didn't really do anything. You know what I'm
Right,
saying?
right.
So it's just been like that constant, like, understanding for me that I've just had to keep refreshing on myself of just like, it's a race. Like, we just have to keep going. Like, it's not going to stop. It's just going to be in a different way. Like, we're just going to have
Mm-hmm.
to fight something in a different way as we get older, and we're going to be more um what's the word, aware
Mm-hmm.
maybe of like certain transitions. But then, you know, God's going to throw something out there, and we're going to be like, what the heck is this? Like, when we're 40, when we're 50, when we're 60, it's always going to be something else that comes up. And I'm just trying to see, like, how do you feel about like coming to that realization? Because for me, it was like really hard to be like, okay, like, this is the line I was obedient in. Like, okay, I'm good now. And then God was like, no, it's this now. Like, you got
Mm-hmm.
here, so now we're going here. And you're like, God, I just did
Really?
that. Like,
Right.
you know?
Mm-hmm. Um, hmm. So I guess this is a good place to like tell just tell my testimony
Okay.
and then kind of go from there. So, um, when I was about like 15, 14, 15, um, I was a freshman in high school, and going on to sophomore year, it was probably like I think it was like the middle of sophomore year. Going outside, and I had my mom's car, and sometimes you just think you're old, right? You're like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
I got the car, like I'm gonna do something real quick and then go do what I have to do. So I went to a softball game, and I had a couple friends with me and just hanging out, and there was this girl there, and she had a rainbow lanyard, which I remember because I just do. And that ended up being my first girlfriend.
Mm-hmm.
And so, going on from there, and through high school, I had two girlfriends. And at that time, I was identifying as a lesbian and I was identifying as a stud, right?
Okay.
And so, you know, just going through that, and just going through life, and then also trying to like, you're acting every day. Like, for
Mm-hmm.
me, when I was in that lifestyle, I was waking up and choosing to sag my pants and lower my voice and flatten my chest, and you know um basically, that was like, what, 12, like maybe even 13 years of my life where I was doing that, you know
Mm-hmm.
um and so 2020 hit, and that it slapped me. It really did, because, like I said, I was acting for so long, and
Mm-hmm.
I had no choice. I couldn't go out and get that, gratification from somebody, or be in somebody's face, or, whatever you have it. I had no choice but to be by myself. I had no
Mm-hmm.
choice. And so, um, I would say, like, maybe, like I said, it was like 12 or 13 years of my life. And I would say maybe in like the fifth year, I was over it. But because of
Really?
the way that sin works, yeah, like, because of the way that sin works, and you're in the motions of life, and you just don't really, you're not really like in God's face and in God's presence, but you know of him, right? I just kind of just kept going. I just kept doing
Wow.
that. And yeah, 2020 hit, and man, I was watching this. I was in the funny thing, I was talking to my mom about this the other day, is I was still tithing. I was still, I was giving, I was I was reading my Bible all throughout those years. I was, I knew God, right? My thing was, now in hindsight, I'm like, okay, well, once I know something, once I read something in the Bible, it's hard to ignore. Once you see a statute, or you see it, you have a standard, it's hard to go backwards, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so when I really started digging into my Bible and watching sermons every Sunday and tithing to a specific church, and being consistent, I watched a sermon. It was like in June of 2020, and it was called Total Surrender. I have it saved in my notes just to go back to and be like, wow. And I literally called my girlfriend, and I was like, I can't do this. And of course, that it kind of took a couple months or so, or I think it was like maybe 6 to 12 months to really disconnect from her, and that was my last girlfriend. But God, even when you don't feel like God is working, God is working. Like, I was still tithing, and I was still giving to his kingdom, and I was still feeding myself the word, and not as heavy as I am now, but I was doing that, and God was doing his little meticulous, inch by inch by inch. And
Mm-hmm.
um it just caused for like a huge transformation, and it did. Like I said, it took some time, and I would call you sobbing on the phone, and just, oh man, that was so much. And um and when you really don't deal with the sin, but you deal with what's tangible and what's seen, you don't deal with the spiritual realm, that's when you kind of get in trouble, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I kind of shifted my sin to men, because I'm like, okay, well, maybe God just wants me to be straight, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I love Jackie Hill Perry. Like, I read Gay Girl,
I
Good
love
Guy,
her. I love her.
and I like her. When my mom sent me her story, I watched it, and I was like, man. And then I was with my girlfriend when we watched it together, And I was just like, she just kind of taking a jab, like, everything is personal, so
Mhm.
in those moments. And so, anyhow, I was just, continuing to fall into that lust, and I shifted it to men, and, got on the dating sites, and, you know, started, having sexual intercourse with men, and, that got me into some deeper trouble, and, started drinking, and oh man. And so those were the levels, right? And what truly made me slow down after COVID, right? After making that physical transformation, what really made me make that spiritual transformation was I ended up getting a DUI, right? And
Mhm.
so I had a nice car, 2018 Hyundai Elantra. I was so happy. I was mobile, and that just that will you wake up in jail. That will really slow you down, right?
Yeah.
From getting places mentally, like I didn't know what I was dealing with, and then I was like went to court, and you get all the stipulations and things that go with that, and that's when I really started to shift gears into my spirituality, into my personal walk, and I kind of disconnected, if you will, from like my like leaning on my mom's spirituality, and leaning on her intercessory prayer, and and so I found this church, and I've been there for like a year and some now, and I've been celibate for a year and like 3 months now, and God, like when you really follow through and just give him the will and take control and give him control, excuse me, like you look back and you're like 11, 12, 13, like, a decade and some of my life. But I know that in this other half of my life, looking at the ladder, God has a plan for me, because I could have been
Yeah.
in the dirt the night I crashed my car. I could have hit
Yeah.
somebody, killed somebody, been in jail for, you know, how much, killing some, oh man, it could have been so much worse. And today I have my license back. I'm off
Yeah.
probation, and that obedience, man, it'll do something. It'll do something. It'll
Yeah.
really do something.
Yeah. And I think also, as being two people that have had really, I don't know, I guess the wrong word is like traumatic, but like
I mean,
I hate
it
using
is.
that word though, but it's
Shoot.
like,
Yeah,
oh,
shoot. Yeah, I
just
get it.
really like where God was like, I have to break you down like for you to come back. You know what I'm saying? Like
Okay.
literally,
Mhm.
because I didn't, for me anyway, I didn't have the strength to like leave
Mm-hmm.
the guy I was living with. I didn't have the strength to um really like, what's the word, like stand up to him and be like, this
Mm-hmm.
isn't acceptable, like we have to do better just in general. Like we were both messed up, and it's just like at some point, what you were saying, like at some point it's like if we're really gonna like be together, like I can't fake like I like this, like this is literally
Right.
prison, like I hate my
Oh
life right
man.
now, like
Right.
I can't do this anymore. And one thing that you had said is like, just going back,
Mhm.
you were talking about how you broke up with your girlfriend, and then you said you took it to like men and in alcohol.
Mhm.
And I just want people, like when Jackie Hill Perry said, she was like, it's not even about the homosexuality like temptations, it's about self-control. And it's about
Mhm.
obedience to what God's righteousness and his standards are. And like
Exactly.
when she said that, it like blew my mind, because I'm like, oh my gosh, because I'm like, why
Mhm.
do people in the church, or at least the people that I know, it
Mhm.
seems like for homosexuality that it's like um maybe something that's like the worst thing, or like, you know what I'm saying, like
Mhm.
they make it to seem
Mhm.
that it's a
Right.
different tier of sin, when it's like,
Right.
no, fornication is really bad too. Like it's the
Yeah.
same sin. You
Yeah.
both, like, nobody has self-control within it. And you can say the
Mhm.
same thing about anybody that has an addiction to anything. It's just a
Yep.
self-control issue. Like
Yep.
it's not the fact that somebody, cuz it's like in your situation, you could have talked to that girl when you were younger and just let it
Mhm.
be, and then
Mhm.
you would have still had, maybe had curiosity or had that attraction to her. But you know what I'm saying, like things would it could have went
Mhm.
differently if you were just like, well, I'm just not gonna feed into like what I'm thinking, like I'll just let it go, or like, like, not that it was
Mhm.
bad or not bad, whatever, but I'm just saying, you know what I'm saying, like it could have been different.
Mhm.
So I'm just saying, like,
Mhm.
even for having sex, like losing your virginity, you have that choice to make that, whether you're losing your
Mhm.
virginity to a man or a woman or whatever. You know what I'm saying? So
Mhm.
I think that
Mhm.
really is something that Christians need to know, is that, like, it's not like tiers of sexuality, like this one's
Sin.
worse or this one's not as bad because it was with
Right.
a man
Right.
and a woman. Like, because when she
Right.
said that, I'm like, oh, so, like, in my head I was thinking, okay, like, so when people are that were gay or lesbian, they were like, that's what they're attracted to, and then when they come to God they're straight. And she was like, no, like, I'm just not indulging in that lust. And I'm like, in
Exactly.
my head I'm like, oh, so I'm like, it's literally the same thing. Like, I don't know who told me like anything different, but I'm just like, it's the
Right.
same thing. Because I'm like, for me, I was having sex before I was married, and
Mhm.
when I really met God and he was telling me like,
Mhm.
this isn't something that, like, I want you to protect yourself, this isn't something that I want you to keep being okay with doing.
Mhm.
um it's the same thing. I can't look
Mhm.
guys up and down and be like trying to give them my
Right.
number. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
I
Yeah.
can't do that anymore. Like, that's
Yeah.
self-control. Like, keep your eyes
Mhm.
straight and keep it moving.
And
You know what
keep
I'm saying?
pushing.
Like,
Right.
right, like,
Exactly.
decide something better. Even though it's hard,
Mhm.
decide something better, and at some point it may get a little bit easier. But yeah, like when Jackie Hill Perry has really helped me with just like the difference between femininity and masculinity, like within a
Mhm.
woman. And like,
Mhm.
I feel like I was always like the tomboy type of girl
Mhm.
that like
Mhm.
wasn't super frilly. Like, I liked wearing dresses, but I was the one that was outside playing basketball, like racing
Right.
guys and stuff like that when I was
Mhm.
little. I wasn't the
Mhm.
Are you okay? I wasn't the one that was playing with Barbies. Like, I think I
Mhm.
cut all my Barbie's hair off.
I'm
My
done.
mom's
Not the
my mom's
bald Barbies.
literally, they would be bald because I would cut their hair
Hi,
off because I was just
auntie.
so
Sorry.
bored.
And hi,
No, yeah,
cousin.
she said hi. Um, but yeah, so you know what I'm saying? Like, I always had that to bump up against because I was just like, well, I'm not like, the stereotypical girly girl. So like, what does that mean
Mhm.
about me? Like, and just,
Mhm.
yeah. So like, Jackie Hill Perry like really, really helped me with understanding like it's okay, because I'm like, the way that Preston loves her, I'm like, oh yeah,
Oh my
I'm
gosh.
fine. He
Like
loves
on
her
with the
so
Perrys,
much.
she'll be like, this is the Saints and the Yanks. Like she'll
Oh
start
yeah.
doing that. And then he'll be like, just to let you know your face is beat. Like today you look so beautiful. And she'll be like,
Yes.
yeah, so what are we talking about today? And I'm like, I couldn't, I feel it. I feel you on that. I feel you on
Yeah.
that. 'Cause I don't know. I think that's also because I have had two boyfriends, and that's something that, it's an ongoing battle of like finding that balance, because you
Mm-hmm.
still kind of have some of those traits, if you will, where you kind of want to just do things yourself, or you kind of have like a hardness still a little bit. And the
Mm-hmm.
guys that I was with were like, can you just let me do something for you, or can you just let me in? And it was like I always was just like, no. And that goes deeper too, right? Once you
Yeah.
really like we've talked about, once you have that time to really think on the whys of some of the things that have happened and the decisions that you've made, it's like, that goes way back to the rejection that I felt when, you know, um just that dynamic of the regular household wasn't the same for me, you know. And so when my parents, were separated and then eventually got a divorce, it was something that, and then my dad leaving, I felt rejected, and then I carried that energy to other men, and then not only that, but on the other side, I wanted to be what other girls needed because I didn't have someone there that I needed. And so it was like,
Wow.
and then like even to look at my household, my mom and my sister, we all really were like the crutch for each other,
Mm,
and so for me, Chance, she was strong, she was very young, and so my mom needed that strength, and so I in my head like, well, I need to take on that masculine figure, you know
mm,
and then that's like a part of it, and then you go back and it's like it's so many ins and outs and things when you're dealing with the identity crisis that we're dealing with now. And
mm-hmm.
and the reason that it's such a crisis now is because I don't feel like a lot of people are dealing with the things that have happened in their past,
Yeah.
you know and
Yeah.
and that when you learn about sex from a young age, also like it kind of confuses things, and it can get really really kind of muddy,
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to dealing with sexuality and the confusion and the lust, and it's, oh man, I can go on and on, I could go
Mm-hmm.
on and on to the whys of like why I ended up doing the things that I did, you know
Yeah.
and I'm just thankful that God really brought those things to my attention and allowed me to have the time to understand those things and go through the tears and, go through the anger and the sadness, and, to end up still triumphant, and I'm still fighting, and I'm still, fighting to understand, but also fighting for that spiritual freedom, which is, dealing with, again, with that obedience, and going making it to church every Sunday. And I don't have a car, so there were some days where I walked from church or to church, excuse me, for Bible
Mm-hmm.
study. It's a
Mm-hmm.
20-minute walk, which isn't bad, but I just was like, I'm going to make it no matter what, because I
Yeah.
know that I need this, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. That's so beautiful. I had such a good time talking to you. I feel like we haven't talked in so
Yeah,
long, like on FaceTime or anything.
seriously.
So
Yeah.
this was really good that I got to see your face and talk to you. Um,
Yes.
do you have anything that you want to like end it with, or do you have any like questions or anything else you wanted to add?
um no, I'm just really thankful, you know, for God's like redeeming power. I'm really thankful for his grace, and just the continuous understanding of like him and
Mm-hmm.
who he is, Um I just think, when you come, well, I know when you come to the kingdom and you just like the moment that you make that change of heart, it's you're a part of it. And I think so many people think you have to do this magnificent, like, just big huge thing, which it is, right?
Yeah.
Spiritually it
Yeah.
is, but like as humans, I think people think we have to do this big old thing, just, and it's as simple as repenting, having that change of heart, asking for a new spirit. Ezekiel 36:26, where it's like asking God for a new spirit,
Yeah.
asking him for a heart of flesh, taking out that stony heart. And it's like,
Yeah.
once you do that, it's you just got to continue to go to him. You
Yeah.
have to continue to go to him, and it's over from there, like over in a great way, out of the world. So
Yeah.
I'm also thankful for this podcast, because even when we don't get to talk, I get to figure you out and understand you from a different aspect, whereas like it's unadulterated, right? Because it's something that not only God is in, but it's also like, oh no, like your little pay, like, I'm this is my cousin, by the way, but it's
I
like,
know. Did we even introduce ourselves?
no, no, We celebrities. I'm done. I'm totally done. We just started talking. I think I was just so excited, for the conversation. But I'm Dorian Mitchell, from Aurora, Illinois. Also Patience's cousin, which I'm so thankful that she's even just doing this and asked me to be on this. And yeah.
Yes. No, I just feel like your story is so beautiful, and like being able to be somebody that was able to see, like, majority of it. I wasn't always like, we weren't always super close with each other,
Right.
but just being able
Right.
to like see each other in different stages.
Right.
Because I just remember, like, when I was younger, I was able to come. My dad brought me up to see you play basketball one of the times,
I
and I
was
was like,
trash.
that's so cool. I was just like, that's so cool that she could play basketball, because I was like super clumsy. So I'm just like, I could never play basketball. So I was like, I just thought it was so cool that you played basketball. And then just like, I don't know, I just always was like, you were always somebody that I looked up to, even though that we weren't like close, but like not close. I mean, geographically, like we couldn't see each
Yeah,
other all
yeah,
the
yeah,
time.
yeah,
But
yeah.
when we would see each other, it was like the same energy every single time.
Right.
Like we were
Every
like
single
best
time.
friends. And it was always something that was like super important to me, that I was able to be somebody that like wasn't, like I said, the way that like Christians sometimes can look at the homosexuality journey and all that type of stuff. I just never wanted to be somebody that was like that to you or made you feel any
Like holier
type
than
of,
thou.
yeah, like I never,
Mhm.
even though I didn't have that same revelation before, like from Jackie Hill Perry, I never wanted it to matter, like what was going on in that area. Like I never wanted it to matter. I never wanted that to separate us or make it an uncomfortable situation. And I'm just really grateful that you felt that too, and that I was somebody that you could call during that transformation, because we were
That's
both
so
going through it.
random.
What?
Like that. I like that God led me to call you. They're
Well, no,
like,
I told you like a week before. I don't know if you were like able to process it when I had
yeah,
told you. Um, I told you like a week before you called me, I had a dream about you.
that's what it was. That's what it was.
What?
Yes,
Okay,
yes, yes,
I don't think I even
yes.
texted you about it, but you ended up like texting
No.
me days later, and you were like, "Hey, like I need to call you whenever you get a chance." And that was literally in
Yeah.
2020.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was in 2020.
it was like me with a guy or something like that.
Yeah, it was super weird,
Yeah.
because I knew the guy, but you didn't know the guy, and that
Right.
was before you had started talking to me about like what you're wrestling with and everything. So
Yeah.
like in my head, I'm like, okay, like what am I supposed to do with that information? Like I'm like, I'm not gonna come to you and be like, Dorian, I had this dream that you're with a guy. Like, what the heck?
I would have been like, okay.
Yeah, like
Like, thanks.
I don't want to be that person that's trying to be like, God wants you to be straight, and he
But
sent me
that
this dream.
I was struggling, like I said, like 5 years in, I was done mentally. But it was
Mm-hmm.
just easy. And so like if I liked a guy, I would be more masculine. If I was attracted to
Mm-hmm.
somebody, I would try to, so it was like it was a fight. And so I didn't think that anybody else could see that. But it was,
Mm-hmm.
to me, like now outside looking in, and I see somebody, and it's certain people where I can sense that they're struggling, and I'm like, I know, I feel you, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna get that deep with that person or whatever it may be in this moment, because we're
Yeah.
it's not the setting, so anyhow. Yeah, I just really appreciate this. Like, y'all don't be afraid to tell people about God. Don't be afraid to evangelize and witness and just, spread the gospel, because, you know, everything that's going on in the world right now is like, you know, you just kind
Yeah.
of giving it the side eye, and you're like, ooh, you just got to be cognizant and making sure that you're trying to build God's kingdom and not tear it down.
Yeah, because I was talking to my friend literally last night, and I told her, I'm like, just how I've been feeling. in the spirit of like, I feel like I've been like, within probably like the last 6 months, I've been like very hyper aware to
Mm.
like sin
Mm.
and like how small it is. Like, not how small it is, but how small it can get in there. Like,
Right.
you know what I'm saying? It's not
We
like,
need the faith
oh,
of a mustard seed. It's like that on the other side. So I know
yes,
exactly what you're talking about.
yes.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it's like, even, okay, God wanted you to get up at 5 a.m. and you got up at 5:30. That was disobedient. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
even though it seems so stupid,
Yeah.
but it's like, no,
Mhm.
like, you're off.
Mhm.
You're already off.
Mhm.
Like, okay,
Mhm.
realign
Mhm.
yourself. And it can happen
Mhm.
so small, and then you realize how far away you are, and you have to figure that out again, you
Mm.
know? And it's just like,
Yep.
I've really been like crazy aware about just like certain decisions. Like I've been really trying to be disciplined about like I said, the posting. Um, I know that For the Redefined is a business, and I'm trying to go towards those steps, but even that is hard, and doing certain things. So it's a different type of trust that I have in God for that, and doing like
Mm.
life coaching and mentorships, and certain
Yeah.
certain
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
ideas that God's given me, and like really trying to be upfront and like, just be obedient of what you're saying, and not be like
Mhm.
afraid to talk about it and all that type of stuff.
Mhm.
So it's just been like, man, it's like those small things like that can get you away too. Like, that's still sin. I feel like before I was like, okay, I don't have sex, don't cuss, don't smoke weed, like, okay, blah, blah, blah. But now it's like, you needed to edit that video, and like now you're not managing your time well. Like,
Stop
okay.
complaining.
Yeah, like,
Don't say that
stop
about this person.
complaining.
Stop backbiting. And I'm like, really?
Okay, so what do you think? If you got to the end, I know you probably liked it, so make sure you like and subscribe. Make sure you share the podcast with people. It's on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, so those Android users don't have an excuse, okay? Everybody can listen to it. And yeah, we just got really into that conversation. I really know that it blessed you, especially if you made it to the end. I know it blessed me and Dorian as well. So I'm just so happy that you were able to make it to the end. Like I said, like, comment, subscribe. If you have any topics that you would like, that you just want to see somebody talk about, feel free to put your favorite part in the comments as well, because I just love to get you guys feedback. And yeah, I'm so happy. Episodes, the audio comes on Wednesday, and then the video will drop on YouTube on Thursdays. So I'll see you next week. Bye.